Hey, this is Chris Velazco with TechCrunch, and today we're taking a really brief look at the newly revealed Moto X from Motorola. I say newly revealed, but the phone has been outed in several leaks over the past few months, so there was very little surprise today. Now that's not to say the Moto X isn't a phone worth paying attention to, but it is the sort of thing that is going to divide households in terms of opinion. First, let's start with something you're going to spend a lot of time messing around with, and that is the 4.7-inch AMOLED display Motorola has thrown in here. It's actually much better than a lot of the displays Motorola has thrown into their older smartphones. Colors are bright without being lurid, which is a pitfall a lot of AMOLED displays sort of fall into, and viewing angles are actually quite good. I haven't been able to turn this thing in a way where I've seen distortion. Now around the back is what Motorola calls its 10 megapixel clear pixel camera, which the company claims can capture up to 70% more light than other smartphone camera sensors. I can attest to how true that is. I've been taking a few shots here in the rather dim TechCrunch New York office, and things have generally come out grainy and none too impressive. Also on board here is a 2 megapixel front-facing camera. Now, front-facing cameras are generally pretty lousy, and the Moto X does not manage to beat my low expectations here. It's fine, it's adequate for video calls, but let's face it, you're going to want to use something else if you're shooting selfies. Now that said, the process of actually taking pictures with the Moto X is really rather nice. Motorola has taken out a lot of the extraneous photo modes and settings that really just tend to confuse people, so you're left with a point-and-shoot solution that is exactly that. Now, Motorola has been really bullish on this X8 chipset of theirs, so they've worked up a new gesture control that allows you to launch the camera no matter where you are in the phone. To be quite honest, it's kind of awkward. Motorola says you have to give it 2 quick twists with your wrist to activate the camera, but I found that I usually have to really torque it like 3 or 4 times to make it work the way it's supposed to. Another one of those X8 powered touchless commands is the ability to basically boss your phone around using the power of your voice. If you say the activation phrase, "OK Google now," and issue it a command like "call Steve" or "search for TechCrunch," it'll pop up the appropriate application and do its thing. Now it actually does work very well, and I haven't had any false positives so far. It's been very accurate. But it's not the most secure thing in the world. You see, in that initial setup process, it tries to acclimate itself to your voice, so theoretically no one else can issue your phone commands when you're not there. That's not always how it works, though. It's worked very well in my testing here, but Motorola concedes that if someone has a very similar voice, or if you're in a loud room, there is a possibility that someone else can tell your phone what to do for you. And then there's the whole active display thing, which works pretty much the way it's advertised. Whenever you pick up your phone or nudge it or whatever really, part of the screen will display what time it is and whatever notifications you've got. A quick swipe up will allow you to jump directly into that application, and a swipe down lets you unlock the phone normally. Simple enough. But let's talk for a minute about how this thing feels. For a phone with a 4.7-inch screen, the Moto X actually feels really small. Whenever you're making a smartphone, it's very important to nail that balance between quality and heft, and Motorola has done a pretty good job here. The X manages to feel light without being too chintzy, and although I don't like it quite as much as the Kevlar we see on the back of the Droids, the composite weave Motorola uses here is very nice. Now the unit I've been playing around with is the untouched, stock white version of the X that's going to debut later this month, and to be quite honest, it's pretty boring looking. Motorola has been playing up the customization angle for weeks now, and it's not hard to see why. If you walk into a store and look at this thing, there isn't going to be a whole lot that reaches out and grabs you. Same goes for the black, although I do actually like that a little bit more. But as always, we're left with a pretty weighty question, and that is whether or not you should buy one. Honestly, it's gonna be hit or miss for a lot of people. Motorola has pretty much made no secret of the fact that the Moto X is not meant for people like me. It's not meant for specs nerds. It's not meant for people who get off on really powerful hardware. It's very much a smarter kind of smartphone for the masses. And that's fine. Motorola could really use some adoption these days. But for $199 with a contract, would I go into a store and buy one of these as opposed to an HTC One or a Galaxy S4? Probably not. Your mileage may vary. Now, to be fair, what Motorola is doing with that X8 chipset is actually really interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that develops down the line. But really, they couldn't have come up with anything exclusive for the Moto X. It's a little disappointing.